What's cooking Wednesday, guys? Today we are going to be taking a look at a deck that was worked on by one of my fellow members of Edison format, Italia. He wanted to play an Earth Machina deck, so he gave me this list and said, hey, play this list. So if you follow that page, you do know I ended up topping with the list. I believe I got top 4 X1 with the deck. However, I did not play his exact 40. So the picture you see on screen right now is the 40 he sent me and his card choices. We're going to talk a little about my card choices and the changes that I made and changes that I would make in the future if you decide to try this deck out. So this was his original build with double Caius, Trooper, double Dandy, 3 Rats, Gigantus. This was one I suggested because he was playing so many Earths. 1 Force, double Fortress, 3 Gear Frame, Grand Mole, 2 Psychic Commanders, 2 Rykos, a super nimble Mega Hamster, 2 Book of Moons, Brain, Charge, which I gave him a little flack for at the time when he sent me this list because I was like, hey man, you're playing Charge with 2 targets and a hamster pulling them ones. I was like, it's not an optimal thing there, but anyway, we'll talk about it later. So emergency teleport to search out the Psychic Commanders. I think the main thing is he really just wanted to play Psychic Commander, so he went with an Earth deck so he could play the Psychic Commanders and grab them off Giant Rat, etc. And then there was Foolish Burial, Heavy Storm, Foolish because it can send Dandy, it can send Fortress, Mind Control because we are playing the tuners, MST, Pot of Avarice, double Bottomless Trap Hole, 2D Prisons, a Magic Cylinder, and he couldn't really give me an explanation on why he put it in there. I think he did it just for fun, just for a surprise factor. I don't know. Mirror Force, Solemn Torrential, and Dust Shoot. And then his side deck was 2 Crows, 2 Dynas, Nobleman, triple Mirror, triple Restrict, triple Shadow Mirror, and a lone Starlight Road. And now the extra deck is a little interesting just because I think he didn't realize what some of the cards, how to make them. So he played Chimera Tech. There's no Cyber Dragon anywhere in sight. So this is solely just to take someone else's. Catastor, Ancient Fairy Dragon for the 7. Then he played double Arcanite. Double Arcanite. Anybody see a problem with the double Arcanite? There is no way for him to make Arcanite Magician. He did not realize it needed a spellcaster. So, you know, it happens. There was a point when I didn't realize Dark End Dragon needed the monster to be a dark. I thought both cards needed to be a dark. So, innocent mistake. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not his main game. So, just keep that in mind. So, Black Rose Dragon, Bryonic, because Bryonic is Bryonic is Bryonic, Colossal, the Dark End Dragon, which, again, I'm not sure how he makes it here. Because there's the Caius, but where's the level 2? There's no way to really make the Dark End Dragon. But, you know, it is what it is. Goyo Guardian, Magical Android, Red Dragon Archfiend, Double Stardust because he was on the side deck Starlight Road, and a Thought Ruler Archfiend. So, if you saw my list, you know I made quite a few changes to it, but shout outs to him for giving me the basic idea and concept for the deck. So I took this build and worked on it and changed it into this. So I kept the double Caius because Caius is a very strong card, as we all know. The Card Trooper, and I main decked a Cyber Dragon. So I took out a Dandelion because I just did not see Dandelion as being a good card in this deck, to be completely honest. It's very mid. Very, very mid. So I took out a Dandy for a Cyber Dragon to enable more synchro plays to make those 8s a lot easier, and to also go into a Chimera Tech of my own if necessary. I did keep the 1 Dandy because the main thing he wanted for this deck was it to be an Earth Machina deck. So I kept the 1 Dandy. I bumped Rat down to 2 because I was finding it useless most of the time. There was not too many times where Rat ever helped. And then Gigantus I kept because, again, there are a lot of Earth monsters in here, and it is a 1900 special summon with a really good effect. I'm a big fan of this card, and as I said, it was one of my original suggestions. Krebons, because why would you not play Krebons when you're playing Teleport? We'll talk a little more about this in a second. I bumped Machina Force up to 2 because when I was doing test hands with the deck, I actually did not test the deck versus a real person. I was just theory crafting, fish bowling the deck. There were so many times where I could not get Fortress out. It was in the graveyard and I could not get it. So I added another force to increase my Monster Reborn ability. 3 gear frame I kept because it's standard Machina. You kind of need them to search out the big guys. Grand Mole, great card. Kept it in here. I added in a Plague Spreader zombie to give another 2 and to increase our odds of going into some of those better cards, the better synchros. Because let's be honest, the 7s that are in Edison are pretty mid outside of Black Rose Dragon, and there's a reason it's at 1. So the Psychic Commanders, I left it at 2. If I would change anything about this deck in the future going forward, I would drop a Psychic Commander for another Krebons. Krebons is just way better, way more plays. Keep the 1 Psychic Commander, go double Krebons. Plague Spreader is just nice 2/2s, give you a third 2 there and leave an option for the Psychic Commander, which you can grab off Rat. And then, of course, Psychic Commander can run over things that are like 1900 as long as you pay for it, or crash into 1900s, I suppose. And then double Raikou I kept, and the single hamster I also kept. I kept the double Book, Brain, Telly, Foolish. I did drop the Charge of Light Brigade because I saw no reason to have that in the deck. It just seemed like a dead card. I swapped it out instead for a second Pot of Avarice, which is slightly counterintuitive to the Gigantus in the deck, but the pots really worked out and saved me throughout the tournament when I used this deck. It has been a few weeks now since I used this, but we didn't do an actual deck profile video, so I figured I'd throw one up on my channel for What's Cooking Wednesday. And then the traps, I cut them down just a little bit. I'm on double Bottomless, double Deep Prison, Mirror, Solemn, Torrential. I dropped Dust Shoot. I'm not a big fan of Trap Dust Shoot. I understand its power. It's an amazing card. It's an unfair card in most situations. However, I like to think of myself as a fair duelist, so I often drop Trap Dust Shoots from my deck. There are some decks that I'm just going to play the Dust Shoot because it's such a blowout in that deck, or if I'm playing like a hand control based deck, I have to keep the Dust Shoot in because I'm trying to play hand control, like I did when I played the Garden Donzlug deck. Went terrible. You won't see a video about that. But basically, yeah, I often drop Trap Dust Shoot from my decks, and so you can see the differences between the main deck here. I basically tried to throw in more optimal cards, and even after the tournament, I definitely would do double Krebons. The side deck, I changed a lot as well, so I threw in Consecrated Lights. These were really good throughout the day. I sided the second Cyber Dragon. Again, it's for those bigger aggressive decks. It's for heroes and things that want to slam 1900 aliases. You got to be able to get over those because Gear Frame can't do it, So Cyber also with Commander or Krebons is fun stuff. I dropped Crow down to 1 and threw in a Soul Release because at this time there were many players on Fairies and Lightsworns and Dragons. So Soul Release was a pretty big card. There was actually one game where this came up. I'll talk about it in a second. And the double Nobleman because I would often side out the Raikou engine to side in the Dyna engine. So I would also side in Noblemans, especially versus Lightsworn and Vayu Turbo and other decks that were on like triple Raikou. So I would side out the Raikou engine for the Dynas and stuff to help control the pace of the game. Double Light Imprisoning Mirror because, like I said, there were a lot of Fairies, a lot of Lightsworns at that moment in time in our meta. Double Mask of Restrict because the only tribute we play is Caius, so it's not that big a deal to side this in versus the Frogs. And Pulling the Rugs, the reason he didn't side Pulling the Rug is because he did not own them. So I threw in my Pulling the Rugs. That's really all there is to say about that. The extra deck, I fixed that up a little bit. I threw in double Chimera Tech. We dropped some of the synchros that we cannot make. Dark End Dragon, technically, I can make it in this deck, and I could and probably should have played it over the Mistworm. However, Mistworm did come up every once in a while. I think I used it once or twice throughout the day. But Dark End Dragon is a possibility in this deck. Armory Arm with the Plague Spreader, with the krebons on the Rykos was a good addition. I think I won a game thanks to Armory Arm. Like, my opponent realized that he could not get over my monster because of that, because of the 1000 attack boost, and he ended up having to scoop. Then we have Goyo Colossal, Bryonic, Black Rose, Standard Stuff, Stardust, Thought Ruler. I threw in the Urbellum for another 7. I used this once versus Norlares to stack their thing back on top, but I think that was my one loss, actually, because like game 1, he opened up busted. Game 2, I was able to control the game and win. And then game 3 was another one of those where he just opened up busted, and I just watched him beat me. And then, of course, I threw in the Gothams because I'm playing the 2s. So we threw in the Gothams because if you don't know, Machina Fortress plus Plague Spreader is Gothams, which is 3100, or krebons as well, because that is a 2. So krebons, Plague Spreader plus Fortress gives you a 3100 monster to run over stuff if need be. So we're going to talk a little about my feelings on the deck overall. So I spent the day going X1. I believe it was 4-1. It might have potentially been 3-1, but we usually have 5 rounds, so it was probably 4-1. And I felt like every single round was just a brick. I felt like every hand I had was terrible. I don't know how I was winning. I mean, obviously the hands couldn't have been as bad as I thought they were, or maybe I just drew the counters well. I don't know, but I really was not impressed with the deck overall. I will say that the major change that needs to happen if you ever considered building this and playing with it in the future is taking Psychic Commander down to 1 and bumping krebons up. But the Psychic Commander, like I said, it was one of the main reasons he wanted to play this deck. He wanted to use Psychic Commander in some way. So I kept it at 2 out of the spirit for the deck, but moving forward, no, just 1. 1 is fine. The Foolish Burial was really good. Dandy was super mid. I think there was one game where it actually helped me, and all the rest of the games, it was just there for stalling. Like, I don't think it made much of a difference ever, like, to be completely honest. I do believe I had one match that was recorded for this, but we did not post it because of a little issue there was with time. So the store decided to call time really early, and we didn't realize. Nobody, like me and the other guy, didn't realize at that moment that, hey, it had only been like 25 minutes or something like that. Like, time was called super early. They were ready to go home, and it kind of screwed him out of the win a little bit. So maybe he would have won that game if we played the full time. Maybe he would not have. It really depends on what I was going to draw for those next turns, if they would have happened. But, oh no, it timed out due to inactivity. All right, so I guess that's what happens when you're not using the mouse and you're just sitting here talking. So his original build was this here, you know, the magic cylinder for trolling, and double dandy I was not a fan, as we mentioned, but overall the deck was fun to play. So if you want to give this a try, remember to try it out and give us a shout out if you do well with it. And if you don't, it is what it is. Let's see, I can pull up the other one real quick just so you can see the deck. All right, so here is the list that I went with. You can use this list, change it around a little bit, make that krebons change, and definitely an advocate for trying out Machina in different ways, especially if you saw my video yesterday. We're trying to just fit it in into everything we can, have some fun, because Machina Fortress is a great boss monster. So I look forward to you watching the next one. Like, subscribe, and check out the videos. And remember, just because the first idea is bad doesn't mean the deck can't turn into a winning deck. Make those changes, keep trying, and see you on the flip side, guys.